Will the Committee on Transportation please come to order? I'd like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Cordero, Committee members Kiaina, Okimoto, and Tupola. Councilmember Tupola is participating remotely by video conference, and Councilmember Tupola, in accordance with HRS Section 92-3.7, can you please identify any person with you at your location?
Aloha, Chair. There's no one with me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we start our meeting, I have some procedural announcements to make. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7 about your revised statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda when the item is taken up in the following order. First, in-person testimony in the council chamber, then remote testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. For remote testifiers, when your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. For those who are joining us by telephone only, I'll identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Some friendly reminders and tips: please video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you're watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you're called to testify. When the timer on screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. All registered testifiers will be called upon first, then I'll give persons who have not registered an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. Please utilize the raise hand feature in Zoom to be called upon. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I'll first call for objections, and if any, I'll call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside the council chamber, in accordance with HRS Section 92-3.7, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audiovisual contact with you and cannot reconvene until we reestablish contact. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you will be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Members, will dive right into agenda item number 1, which is Bill 20 of 2023, CD1, which addresses parking in the city and county of Honolulu, including the city's restricted parking zone program. Members, I note that there is a posted CD2 that was approved by the committee on at its May 23rd, 2023 meeting and subsequently postponed in committee. So that's where the bill is at right now. Furthermore, we have posted 2 additional CD2 versions of the bill, one proposed by Councilmember Kiaina and one that I proposed. So for your information, a summary of the amendments are listed on the agenda. At this time, if she'd like, we can have Councilmember Kiaina explain her CD2, or we can do that at the end, and it may not be necessary at the end anyway, but if you'd like to, or no need.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem.
It's been a long day. Okay, so mahalo, Chair, for continuing the dialogue and establishing RPZs. I am proposing amendments to the version we passed last month to number 1, ensure impacts to public accessible areas, including in particular the shoreline, is considered when establishing a new or amending an existing RPZ. It would also require the director to consider impacts, if any, to accessing certain healthcare, such as pharmacies or clinics in nearby areas. It creates a non-resident visitor permit, which the public could apply for. This may be particularly needed if an RPZ is near publicly accessible areas like beaches and parks. Finally, my proposal is to reduce the number of permits a household can apply for from 4 to 2. 4 household permits seems excessive, and for RPZs that will only allow permit holders to park on the street at all times, I worry that it almost privatizes the streets. And I did want to note that I have concerns about the low price of the fees, but we'll wait to ask questions of the Department of Transportation Services when we get there. Thank you.
Okay. And speaking of the Department of Transportation Services, we have Director Morton here, as well as I think folks who've been working on this program.
Aloha, my name is Roger Morton. I'm Director of Transportation Services. I'd like to, first of all, provide a compliment to the amount of thinking that's been going on by the council and by my staff in drafting these bills. I do have I think that some of the measures that have been proposed are innovative and deserve, great consideration. at the same time, I know for such a small bill as Bill 20, this is going to have a profound impact on many neighborhoods. There's nothing like parking to get your juices going if you can't find it. And so I just want to emphasize how much potential impact the bill could have. Having said that, the department is strongly in favor of a restricted parking zone. I do have concerns over fees as well. I know we went from CD, from the original bill, which had a fee of $240, to I think it went down to 120 and then to 80, and now it's 50. Personally, I would like to have a little discussion over the fee, not only including the department, but also including the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services as well. The shoreline access is a really innovative idea. I did want to make sure that we do think it through, because it could have island-wide impact on the way we do things, not only in one community, but look to the impact it would have throughout the island where there's shoreline. A number of permits when going from 4 to 2. I guess the long and the short of it is, I think the department, with the number of changes that have been made, none of which we are opposed to, but we would like the time to further consider them, and that we would urge deferral from this meeting.
Okay, thank you, members. Any questions for the director? Any questions for the director?
Yes, but Chair, did you want to go over your amendments?
Sure. So actually, that's a good point. So the proposed CD2 that's listed on the agenda makes several changes. It establishes that the director may establish, reduce, modify, or dissolve an RPZ by updating Schedule 39. It also clarifies that the council may do so separately from the director by amending Schedule 39. It limits the number of eligible permits to 4 per resident, with a maximum of 1 annual visitor permit per resident, plus no more than 10 single-day visitor permits per month. And it also lowers the base rate from $80 to $50. It also creates the program where the director can reallocate the fees collected to a city payment card. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have several questions, so just let me know if you want me to rotate after I ask a couple of questions. For the director, first with regard to off-street parking requirements, do we know how many off-street parking stalls are required for single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, duplexes, and ADUs in residential districts?
Let me confer with staff. Yeah, well, I know it's in the land use ordinance, but do you know the particulars?
If not, you can always
we can get back to you.
Sure.
Yep.
And what about multifamily dwellings? How many off-street parking stalls are required?
Yeah, I think it depends upon the area, whether it's TOD or whether or not it's not. My experience has been that even within TOD, developers lately have been asking for more, not even what is minimally required, but are asking for more than that. And it's a trend I don't think is a healthy trend.
Okay, thank you. With regard to fees, how much does the pilot currently cost to administer, and where do the funds come from?
The estimate we made is based on the existing and then on a going forward basis as well. We estimate the fees, which are largely labor, are about $200 per permit.
Yes, but under the pilot, no, people are not paying for it. Is that correct?
That is correct. Under the pilot, there is no charge, and so the cost of the program is just built right into our regular budget with no fee replacement.
Okay, so with regard to the proposed draft, would the currently proposed fee structure cover all of the costs to administer the program, and if not, where would the funds come from?
All of the CD versions would not cover the cost of the program. And my assumption is that the cost of the program would be borne by general government, the additional incremental cost.
What is included in the cost for the types of RPZs that would allow residents exclusive parking rights on a parking street? Does it make sense to include costs related to maintenance of the streets?
We don't include maintenance of the street, and I don't really think I could understand the reason why we would.
Well, if it was exclusive and others can't avail themselves of parking on that street, it kind of comes like a private street.
If it was, it would be allocated and estimated into the fee structure.
Okay, thank you so much. Members, my colleagues, after some thought, even though the second, third, and fourth permits would be more expensive, I have to say that I think $50 annually is insufficient. I understand that DTS estimated that it currently costs about $200 per permit. So if the fees don't cover the cost, then the taxpayers have to cover it. Next, with regard to eligibility. At the last hearing, the director alluded to RPZs not being appropriate in all situations. Can you help us understand whether there are situations where an RPZ would be totally inappropriate?
I think in areas where there was so much parking that there was never any lack of supply would not lend itself to an RPZ.
Okay, thank you. Does the current draft allow RPZs to be created in places where city meters currently exist?
Yes, but it's unlikely. My staff says that we would do it.
With regard to the permits, you mentioned, I'm proposing 2 instead of 4. What are your thoughts on whether 4 permits is too many?
To a certain extent, I think it's site-specific as to whether 4 was too many. I think the dilemma that we have is the demand for permits in places where we have a lot of multi-generational housing. We limit it to 4. There's lots of places where there's demand for 8 or more. And so it is a question of basically matching the supply on the street with the wishes of the people. And I think it's a phenomena that we have now of 3 generations or more living in the same structure.
Okay, and I guess I'm just concerned since we're delegating authority to you, and of course you have the discretion to go beyond the allotted permits. I think the baseline is important, and I understand that each district would be, each area will be different. I just worry sometimes that if we don't incorporate the potential for others to be able to get permits or park in that area, then it's going to be problematic for me. Lastly, with regard to council approval, I noticed that one of the proposed CD2s would allow council to establish, repeal, amend an RPZ, which we currently have the authority to do so. But as drafted, would the council have to follow any criteria?
As drafted, I couldn't find any criteria, and I know the administration has some concerns over that part of the bill.
Okay, so moving forward, I guess I look forward to working with you on that if this bill moves forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? Director, I just wanted to get a little bit more specificity on how we arrived at the estimate of $200 per permit, and then the actual total fees not divided out by permits for the existing RPZ zones, because I think that'll help us to really drill down on the appropriate fee structure and any subsidy that might be required.
My staff has prepared a little complicated spreadsheet that details out the components of what goes into that. I think I would probably prefer to just send you a written response on that rather than trying to describe it.
Yeah, that's fine. And then I wanted to ask about there's been discussion about whether the proposed $50 fee structure or even $80 fee structure is too low, and yet the department wants the ability to reallocate those funds to be given out to neighbors, and I feel like that doesn't really square. If we're complaining that it's not generating enough money, and yet we want to use this money to give it away, that doesn't seem to make sense. So how wedded is the department to the reallocation piece?
In discussions I've had with other members of the administration, there is concern on the part of the administration too. That's one reason I would like to have a deferral, is so that we could have a full discussion internally with our Department of Budget and Fiscal Services and other departments to look at that and other issues.
Okay. Members, any other questions? We'll, of course, come back for further discussion when we make our recommendation, which will be deferral anyway. But we'll go to if there's no objection, why don't we go to testimony now? Because I see a couple people who have wanted to testify. So why don't we go to in-person testimony? Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay, so why don't we go to Micah Munekata from Ulupono Initiative, and I know James Manaku Sr. also wants to testify, so we'll go to him afterwards.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Micah Munekata. I'm with the Ulupono Initiative. Just want to express our appreciation for this council and really this committee chair in moving this measure forward. I know it's taken some time to get to where we are today, but it's a lot of great discussion. And we look forward to this bill moving forward in the process and eventually to its implementation. We do find that this bill is an important step forward for the city and county in its overall approach to parking management. And there are quite a few benefits that we highlight in our testimony. So really appreciate all your work on this, Chair, and members of the committee, and look forward to its implementation. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any questions? All right, if not, we'll go to our next testifier. You can introduce yourself for the record and then proceed.
Dan Sam, Mama Senior, concerned parent, grandparent, great-grandparent. You know, I'm really concerned about this bill. I'm a subsistence practitioner, and yet I'm concerned because now we cannot go to the beaches and we cannot go to the mountains because where will we be parking? I hunt for a living, yeah? So when I go into the neighborhood, where will I park? If I go to the ocean, where will I park? Somebody please tell me. The state says I have the right to the ocean. Where will I park? They say I have the right to the mountains. Where will I park? So one of you please tell me? Because now I can't put food on my table. For those of you who have television, have you folks seen the docks on the mainland where all the food is? They haven't put it on the ships to sail it here. Where all the food's going to be. It's all spoiling there. So the only food we have is in the ocean and in the mountains. So how do I get it to bring it to my families? How do we get it to give it to our families? You folks are the only one we can get it from. Because if not, if I park my car someplace, they're going to, away from where I'm at, they're going to be stealing they're going to steal from my car. They're going to steal my car.
Yeah.
If I put it where I'm at, I'll feel safer. So I'm not sure what you guys are trying to do. I mean, I'm glad you folks are doing something, but what about us?
Yeah.
What about those people that the state says that we have the right to be there?
Yeah.
Are you guys going to forget about us? Thank you.
No. Thank you for your manao on this issue, and I think that this is part of why I'd like to take a little bit longer to work on some of these things, not just for the beach access, but for mountain and other natural resource access as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, members. Now let's go to remote. Is there anyone else in person who'd like to testify? All right, let's go on to remote testifiers. Is there anyone who'd like to testify remotely?
Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee. Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of Kapalama Neighborhood Security Watch in support. So in Los Angeles, preferential parking permits costs $34 each year, and overnight parking permit costs $15 each year. And permits may be purchased for the full year. If Honolulu were to copy the program from LA, or Chicago, you're going to want to look at those models and see which one you like. There are also models from San Francisco, DC. If you go to the US DOT Federal Highway website, you can see all the information there. Annual residential parking permits are $100 in San Francisco, $35 in DC, $25 in Chicago, and free in Boston. Cities have experimented with RPP by implementing various restrictions that range from the number of parking passes a household can receive to what types of households are eligible to receive a residential parking pass. And several cities limit the number of passes per household, which reduces the potential for abuse. For example, residents can resell extra passes. And if you want to look at Aspen and Boulder, they provide examples of monetization of excess residential parking spaces. And Cincinnati also has a good program. So yeah, those are kind of really good examples to look at.
All right. Well, thank you for those suggestions, especially noting the other cities. Members, any questions for the testifier? Okay. If not, clerks, is there anyone else standing by remotely to testify?
Mr. Chair, there are none.
Okay. Hearing none. Members, is there any further discussion or any other points we want to make here? I think, Councilmember Cordero?
Thank you. Just as I stated last committee relating to this bill, relating to the conditions of council oversight, I would like to remain consistent that if it does continue to have that condition, that I may not support the bill. But I know we're doing this for deferral. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Any further discussion on this bill? Okay. Hearing none, the chair recommends that action on Bill 20, 2023 CD2 be postponed to the next scheduled Transportation Committee on Tuesday, July 25th of 2023. And I do hope that at that meeting, we will be ready to move it forward, either further amend it or move it as is, and move it out to the full council at that point. We have had 2 months already to work on this, and I know a number of really important points have come up at the last hearing as well as this hearing. But hopefully we can move forward. There's a lot of other transportation things that we're going to have to work on in the fall. So I'd like to hopefully get something out of here at our next meeting, again, July 25th. Is there any discussion, any further discussion, any objections or reservations with regard to the recommendation to defer? Okay, hearing none, so ordered. Members, drum roll please. We are very excited to have our next agenda item, which is the briefing regarding the rail opening on June 30th of 2023. I'm sure the department can tell us exactly how many hours and days and minutes are left until 2 o'clock on June 30th. And we'll turn it over to the Director of Transportation Services, Roger Morton, to kick this off.
We are 10 days away from rail opening. I do have some good news today that we received final concurrence from our State Department of Transportation Safety Oversight branch, and that means that right now we're like a spaceship getting ready to launch. We're X minus 10 days, and all systems are go. We're comfortably confident. I don't want to be overconfident, but I think that so far our process has been going. There's been an extraordinary level of interest in the community of getting this going. We are planning really 5 days of free transit travel for anyone on the island who wants to experience the new rail system. We're planning a grand opening ceremony that'll be on the 30th in the morning. And mostly, we've made an attempt to show what we're doing to the community. We've been open with the media. And so far, I think we're getting good results. We haven't had any real adverse sniping at us. I think the media is in a wait and see mode for how everything goes. I think that you, as members of the council, and all of the residents of Oahu are going to really be pleasantly surprised when you get to experience Skyline. My partner Lori is here as well. I think her and her staff have done a tremendous job over the past 2.5 years, and they've got a system that I feel confident is ready to be delivered to the residents. I'm really don't really have much of a presentation. I'll just give you an update on that. But I know that Lori and I are available for any questions that anyone might have.
Okay. Members, any questions for Director Borton? Okay, before we go.
Chair, I have
yes.
a question.
Yes. Councilmember Tupola, please proceed.
Hi, Director. So I have a quick question regarding the Kapolei side of the rail. So I know that we're having this at the stadium, and I know that it was kind of planned in that particular area for a variety of reasons. I have met with some of your staff as well as Hart about this. But in the, I guess, thought that it's kind of for the university students, right? We have a connection from West Oahu to LCC, and then I know it goes farther than that. I had suggested that we do something for the university students as far as like an opening, and we're not going to be late if we do it later because school doesn't start for this coming semester on June 30th. So there is some time. Is there any thought from DTS on doing something for the university students to kind of encourage the ridership? It was a huge conversation way back when the rail first started because people like myself who have children who are dropping off or, you know, running around, we may not have the ability to ride the rail and get from point A to point B because we have a lot of errands to run, whereas a student that may be going from West Oahu to LCC, it could work for them to go from class to class. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We have got two very supportive chancellors that are interested in doing everything that the city and the university can do in order to get the students at Leeward and at West Oahu to experience it. We're going from a transit desert in those things. We have, I think, 13 trips a day during school days at LCC, and we're going to be going to a large train that's even better positioned every 10 minutes. So the expansion of service is tremendous. I think that it won't serve everybody, but I think that it'll serve many, many people. We're in talks with the universities, with the community colleges and the West Oahu College to, in early preliminary discussions about how we could expand our UPass program to those. We're not planning to do that upon this school year because we want for one thing, that usually is a student-driven initiative. It's not a administration or a city-driven initiative, but we do plan to work with the student leaders to talk about expanding universal transit access for the two campuses that we're going to be serving come next week. As far as doing a transit fair or some kind of promotion on the campuses, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that, and also bear in mind, you know, I previously did work at UH for many years, and that fall semester always has a higher enrollment than spring. Yeah. And so traffic coming from the west side into town is always going to be heavier. So if there is an incentivization for that fall semester to be using more transit-oriented, whether it's rail or bus, it would really help a lot. So whatever help you need from myself, I do think the fair would be great, but I also think even just something more celebratory on their campuses to kind of introduce it a little bit more and get the students more involved in just the idea of utilizing it. And I do know a lot of kids from Waianae that catch the bus. So if there is that thought of, okay, maybe I can make it to West Oahu and make it over to LCC because maybe I'm going to use the library at And I do want to hear what the students have to say about that as to how they think that it could be a benefit to them. And maybe we're not looking into something that we should. So thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, Director. Quick question, if you could just give us a follow-up. I know in the news there are a couple of stories. One of them is pertaining to the Waiala substation with the raised crosswalk for safety. If you could give me an update on that. And the second, I wanted to talk to you about the hours of operation.
Sure. For the upgrade, I think I'll ask Lori to answer that since she's coordinating that.
Construction agency, right?
Good afternoon, Lori Kahikina, CEO and Executive Director of HART. And so HDOT and HART are both putting in raised speed bumps in the area. So I believe HDOT will be done by the 22nd and will be done by Friday. So there'll be 2 extra speed bumps heading to the west direction and additional signage that'll be done by the end of this week.
That's on the one side only, just to the
westbound.
Right, okay.
Westbound, yes.
Westbound side,
Yes.
okay. And was there reflective light, or was it just the bumps? I know that there's...
No, HDOT is putting in additional signage too in the area.
The lights. Okay, thank you for the update.
You're
I know that
welcome.
on the news you had made the goal to have it before the 30th.
Yes, we're going to hit it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank
That's
you.
great to hear. And second question, I know I had brought this up in one of our previous meetings, but I also saw the news story that mentioned the hours. And I know this story specifically was relating to the Aloha Stadium and the entertainment opportunities there. But I did have questions earlier on you guys are ending it at 7 and the bus routes go longer than that. So what are the plans? How soon are we looking at expanding? I know initially you had said that we're going to look into it, but do you have a more concrete timeline for that?
Our concrete timeline right now is that we will be expanding our hours when we open our second section, which should be 2 years from now. When we get to the airport, it will be open until midnight, and we'll be starting at 4 a.m. instead of 5.
So the 7 p.m. closure is for the next 2 years. We're not looking at anything other than that.
You know,
sooner.
if we had a demand, then we would go back and take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you. Members, any other questions? If not, I'll dive in with a question. I know that we've discussed the parking garage for folks coming in from Central Oahu. Are there any plans to offer additional bus service from Central Oahu, maybe an express service that goes right to either the Waiau station or maybe LCC, just to let people who need to use rail or maybe get to Kapolei or whatever, access that from Central Oahu?
Central Oahu has pretty rich service as it is. The problem is the road network does not really allow us to do Pearl Highlands effectively. As you know, in the long term, we are planning to have a transit center there where we would have direct bus service from the freeway that would connect to a transit center right at the mall at the station. And but when I've looked at trying to figure out how we could figure out a way to get additional service in, the answer is there's no easy method that allows us to do things like turn buses around, or you're coming in from the wrong side of the station, and then you've got to fight that traffic, which is destructive traffic around Acacia Road. And so there's no, I just can't give you a good solution that would connect that station. Of course, we do have service from Central Oahu to Waipahu, and so there is connection to the Waipahu station, and there is connection to the Pearl Ridge station once we get beyond the junction where the highways are all over the place. So those are the best I could do in the short term. And we are looking at making some interim changes. There, in one area, there's a potential that we could have a bus loop turnaround, which would really help us from a bus operations point of view. That's under the jurisdiction of state highways. It would be non-standard, so it would require federal highways approval as well. But we're in discussion with the state over would a transit-only loop right around be something that we could look at. We are at the Pearl Highlands station. We've committed to design of a pedestrian bridge. That's about a $3.5, $4 million design effort. A bridge would be in the $35–40 million range. We would be looking for supplemental funding, maybe an infrastructure project that might help us in that area. That I think that would be something that would make it much more accessible to Pearl City. So the combination of the transit center and a pedestrian bridge, that's what's needed at this point, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of follow-up questions. So you mentioned, I just want to ask about the bus route accessibility, and then also you mentioned this possible bridge that's quite expensive. But so for residents who are coming from my district or even Councilmember Wyer's districts, the only way to get to this Waiala substation or
we have two routes that will serve the station.
What are the bus routes for that?
I think one of them is Pearl City Peninsula that will go to it, albeit that's not the highest ridership area, as you can imagine. I think there's another one that comes from Upper Pearl City, goes through Manana, and gets to the station. But I need to really get my staff to get I believe there's two routes.
Are those parking rides? Because I know in Mililani we have a couple of parking rides where somebody could park there and get on the bus to get to the rail station. But in Pearl City, are those places where someone can park their vehicle to get on the bus to get to the station?
Well, there aren't many. I mean, you know, there's some parking available, but it's too far away from the stations to be effective. There is there is parking at the stadium, which would be accessible. And again, parking is something that people do for different reasons, right? One reason people park in park and rides, particularly if they're free, is they don't have to pay the $200 or $300 downtown. So for those folks that are interested in parking remotely to save money, there are options to be able to do that.
So just to clarify, so those coming from my side of the island, one of your recommendations is to drive to the stadium?
One of the options is that I provided is that, yes.
But then right now the rail only goes to the stadium, correct, for the next couple of years?
That's true, but from the station, we do have an express bus, so there might be some interest in that. But again, in Pearl City, we also have other bus services that we're not going to change that provide a fairly direct ride into town, the 54, the 53, and some express buses in the morning that we're not planning to change. So the reality is that, you know, until we get to Airport and to Middle Street, most people aren't going to want to ride one stop or even two stops on the rail if there's competing buses that go along with it. That's just the hard reality.
How do you plan on keeping track of the vehicles that go? Now, so you just said there's essentially free parking at the Halawa station. Anybody can just park there, whether they get on the bus or the rail or.
Well, we haven't committed to keeping it the way it is now. We're going to open it as free parking, and we're going to assess it. There's a number of things we could do even if we kept it free. We could put gates on it, and the gates could be accessible with somebody that used a holo card and then got on rail. Otherwise, it would take so there's a number of technical options that we could do. But at this point, in our first initial segment, we're going to open it, and we will be monitoring it very closely to see if we are exceeding demand.
So as we watch and monitor demand, the possible option would be that we end up either charging for parking or we have to put in some kind of system, which would, again, cost money to put in.
If we put in gates, it would cost money, correct.
And you have any idea of what that would be at this time?
We don't have that planned at the current time, but I think particularly as the system gets to town, then we will revisit the issue of whether parking should be free or whether there should be some parking plan or whether parking should be provided in conjunction with traveling on the rail.
Sorry, so I just want to go back to, thank you for answering the questions. Going back to those residents that come from, again, my and Councilmember Wyer's part of the island. So how would they find out what buses they would need to get on where they can park? I know again where the parking rides are in Mililani, but I don't know where beyond that. So how would somebody find out when they could get on a bus to get to the rail station?
I believe we have two websites that are available. One is honolulu.gov/rail, and the other one is thebus.org, which has put in a new pages showing all of the rail accessible bus routes in a special page.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful information. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Committee Vice Chair Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Director. I have a question relating to the open gates and when you anticipate to be able to determine the ridership. Will it be maybe a year from now, 6 months from now, because of the open gate concept?
Councilmember, the open gate concept is only on June 30th.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thereafter, we should be able to get down to a very, ridership by hour by station.
Okay, thank you. And in addition to the two websites that you mentioned, both the honolulutransit.org as well as the bus.org, I just want to ensure that the different transit sites and apps are going to be updated as well. Of course, a lot of us use transit.google.com to determine which bus routes from point A to point B or all in between from point A to Z to get places, that all that will be updated as well, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And my next question is relating to the commemorative holo card. I know that is limited, and so do we know when and where that will be distributed, and if that's going to have a cost as well?
We have produced. We have two kinds. We have, when we buy holo cards, we buy a percentage of them that are blank, and those we use to make senior cards or other types of cards where we put pictures on them. So we have produced holo cards, commemorative holo cards without pictures, using those blanks. And so it's been, my staff's been complaining because they've been working on this for 3 weeks, just printing all day long to make passes. We have two types of commemorative passes that we are doing right now. We have one commemorative pass that we're doing as a promotion with area businesses. And that pass has a free 1 day bus all-day pass on it that's good for the bus and the rail. And those will be distributed by businesses such as the shopping centers, the 50th State Fair, Zippy's, and perhaps even another one that we're discussing, one more business. That was authorized by you guys. There are only 10,000 of those, so and I'm trying to prioritize those cards that get distributed to areas that could benefit from using the rail. And so, for example, our Zippy's partners are going to distribute those cards at the 4 stores that they have in the vicinity of the rail system, not all of their stores island-wide. For the other commemorative cards, we have commemorative cards that don't have a pass on them. They're just holo cards, but they're commemorative. Those are available. We'll do a number of things. We do plan to distribute them during the 4 days that we're going free at this. So we are going to be distributing them there. We have distributed them to other groups that are interested, like AARP and other groups like that, that we haven't. And we have taken ad hoc requests from organizations that want to get them for their staff.
Okay, so the answer to where they will be distributed is like the Zippy's partners at 4 of their restaurants that are near and along the first segment, correct? And so on the opening day or the first few days, the free ride days, there won't be any commemorative holo cards available at any of the stations.
They will be available.
Oh, they will be. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I had a question. Okay, I think I can't remember my other question, but thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions for the director? Okay, if not, before we go on to Lori, actually, do you have anything to add? Other than just thrill and excitement. All right. We'll go on to public testimony. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Mr. Chair, there are none.
Okay. Is there anyone in the chamber who'd like to testify? I don't see any, so we'll move to remote testifiers. I see we have Angela Melody Young, who is registered to speak. Angela, please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee. Angela Melody Young, testifying in strong support of HART on behalf of Kapalama Neighborhood Security Watch. And so I brought up by the way, I'm really grateful for the disability advocates event that they hosted. So really thankful for what they did with the disability advocates group. And so something else I was gonna mention was, if you've ever noticed the logos on the bus, with each restriction comes a matching code it refers to under the restriction. For example, no sleeping at the bus stop has a matching ROH ordinance under it, and the no guns logo has the new ROH ordinance under it. It reminds people what they can and cannot do. For surveillance cameras, I was wondering if there could be consideration that it should have a matching logo and ordinance. Right now, there is no ordinance to support it, so its operations, people can say that it's not legitimate. And surveillance cameras are going to be very helpful on HART if anything were to happen. And the city and HTA, the Hawaii Tourism Authority, has a collaboration, and it aims to enhance security across 4 city park locations through a joint effort to install 75 security cameras. The city paid for the cost of the cameras, while HTA covered the cost to install the cameras. And from the Parks and Recreations Department, in their experience, these kinds of security cameras have proven to be excellent tools to help create more secure public areas and also to deter vandalism and criminals. And the sites that were chosen to receive the cameras are the most popular locations anecdotally. Yep. So this is a really good example to look at about effective camera systems, also the current bus system. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the testifier? Clerks, is there anyone else registered to testify remotely?
Mr. Chair, there are none.
All right. Well, if there's no further discussion, we all look forward to riding rail starting on June 30th, 2 p.m. at any of the stations. Make sure you get your holo cards. I certainly can't wait. And until then, we will adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you all tomorrow at all of our committees tomorrow. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Vice Chair Cordero?
So move.
Second from Councilmember Okimoto. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.